I see us live. We are stoked to be back. Well, there we go. Get some of that background music off. That happens when you get a lot of screens open, I guess. We're live. We're ready. I got my CBD rolled. I'm ready to go. We are back for another great week of In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. I want to thank everybody for being aboard today. We do have the green nurses on with us, Nurse Mark and Nurse Sherry. We're going to have the rest of our team joining us here shortly. Thomas Markham of Vermont Grow Coaching will be joining us here momentarily, as will Timothy Fair of Vermont Grow Coaching. Everybody's scrambling around holidays and getting pulled over. Apparently, it's a good day to get pulled over. Sure, Thomas will have a story for us when he gets on. But we're very excited to bring you guys on today. A lot of the really cool things is that we have brought you guys onto the show to do a segment with us, Canada Talk, which we're really excited about. You guys produce a lot of great content, and you do it from the medical standard, right? Which a lot of people don't think about, right? We talk about it a lot on the show about the differences between medical and rec, right? Sherry, we've had this discussion a few times. We discussed it last week, where to me, there's too much crossover, right? And we talk about why, and cannabinoids and the benefits of medicines, right? Carts versus fresh pressed dabs versus tinctures versus, and then taking them as a patient. You know what I mean? A lot of the things that we do for patients, and we discussed this right before the show. It's let's not give grandma an edible this Christmas, right? Or should we, right? But the problem is, I find with edibles is the sugars. It's what they're made out of, right? Like from a health and a chef standpoint, it's not necessarily what patients should be utilizing, right? If you want to get high and you want to enjoy your THC and you want to kick back and relax and you know what you're expecting, then great. That's a different story. But if you're trying to medicate, I always use the conversation like it's like drinking whiskey to cure your broken leg. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? It helps the pain go away for a minute, but it doesn't really work. And with cannabis, it can work for you, right? I mean, we discuss this a lot. This is why you guys are on, because a lot of people don't realize the medical benefits of it. A lot of people are really skeptical of it, right? And like we were talking about before, it's there's a lot of people that are really interested in learning about this that just don't know where to go, right? So you guys provide a great platform for that. The Green Nurse, right? So let's get the show started. We have Sherry and Mark. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Whoever wants to go first. Just tell us who you are, where you're from, and literally how the hell did you get into cannabis?
Well, I'm gonna let Master Mark go first.
What, me? It's always ladies first, Sherry.
Well, you know what? I was on last week, so I got to do a little bit of chatting. But I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'll go last.
Listen, I'll never shy away from talking about my favorite subject, and that's me. So here we go. So I've only been a nurse since 2014. This has not been a lifelong vocation for me. This was a personal choice that I made in 2012 after running a tech company that I started in 1987. Yeah, back when PCs first came out, right? So I ran a tech company for all those years. So I'm an entrepreneur. Then I decided I wanted to do something a little more meaningful, and I got into nursing. Well, I worked in a long-term care facility, AKA nursing home, for about 9 months, and that was it. I was like, I want to affect millions of people, right? I don't want to just do it one at a time. And so I sold that tech company at the end of 2017, Joseph. And my story is I fell in love with another amazing entrepreneur out of Brooklyn, New York, and she had started a CBD company maybe 3 years prior. And her story was she had breast cancer and had double mastectomy and couldn't take opiates for pain. And she found cannabis. She wasn't a cannabis user before that. And she used cannabis very effectively. But what she found is that she couldn't find really good product, right? So this is early on, like 2014. So she started the company. Anyway, we hooked up. I moved in with her in Brooklyn. I didn't have a business. She had one that was going. So of course I'm going to dive in and help her with her business. And the more I got into cannabis as a medicine, dude, it just blew me away. It was like the light bulb went off. I said, this is how I'm going to help millions of people actually heal and have a great quality of life. And it's been a deep dive ever since then. I started traveling around the world to every medical cannabis conference that I could attend. I would do every certification program. And finally, I ended up in this master's in medical cannabis science program at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. So I'm one of the first 150 people in that program that'll graduate. One more semester, baby, one more. And that's it. We'll be the first ones in the country, I think in the world, to have a master's in medical cannabis science. Amazing. So that's how I got into the business. That's how I ended up here. And then
it's amazing that that option's even out there right now, right? When we talk about education, right? Because we don't hear about that.
Yeah. I intentionally went out looking for a degree program. I mean, I searched in Israel, right? Israel is the epicenter of all cannabis research. We know it, but maybe the folks listening don't know. Israel's like 5, 7, 10 years ahead of everybody else in cannabis research. Like, they got 150 different patents on cannabis as a medicine. Like, they're way far down the road. I went and looked in Israel. Like, I looked at the different universities looking for some sort of a master's level program, and I just couldn't find anything. And then I got tipped off that University of Maryland was coming out with one. Dude, I was relentless. I contacted everybody before any literature was out. Like, I'm interested, sign me up, bring me on. Man, once I get on it, I'm like a dog on a bone.
I'm going to look into that as well.
Well, Mark,
it's awesome. It's amazing.
Mark, Mark, continue on with the story, because you have been doing some amazing things. You also launched a CBD product line, and you wrote a bestseller book.
Well, of course, I mean, come on, you're in the business, you see all these amazing things happening, and you have an education in it. Of course, I took a year and researched companies and found, growers and manufacturers and just vetted them. I mean, I have one story. I went to Cali to check out a vendor who looked really good, right? They were GMP certified. They had, they were really PhD in chemical science. And I thought it was going to be this awesome thing. I walk in, dude, it was like something out of Breaking Bad. It was like there was a landing strip beside the place. It was beakers of shit bubbling all over the place. Oh, thank God I went and looked before I actually signed any contracts. It was crazy. Yeah. So, and I wrote an Amazon #1 bestseller about how to live the best life ever. That's what I do.
And that's the premise of our morning show. Our morning show is your daily dose of AFA, which is absolutely fucking amazing, because that's what you are.
You are, and I am. We're all absolutely fucking amazing. We just get inundated with bullshit from life, and we forget that.
Well, you guys had a great segment this morning talking about was it reflections and all the things going on this holiday, right? Because a lot of people between COVID, the holiday season, we're stressing out, right? I mean, I think we're going into a second lockdown. People are going, our numbers are going up. And now you guys were talking about on your show this morning a great piece, right?
Resiliency.
Resiliency, right? Explain that to people. It's the resiliency, and like you guys wrapped it in cannabis really nicely, because a lot of people, you're talking about health, right? And we talk about mental health is one of our biggest things, right? And cannabis can have a huge impact on mental health. And I think what you guys with your AFA, absolutely fucking amazing, awesome, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, man.
It's a great mindset to wake up to every day, right? Every day is what you make of it, right? So we have a choice whether we sit in our beds every day and pout about everything around us, or we have a choice to get up and make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Talk about resiliency a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk and a lot of research being done these days about resiliency, about how when events happen in life, why does one person just kind of move right through it with joy and happiness, even though it could be the worst situation ever? They just move through and everything's great, and they move on to the next phase in life. And then a similar event will happen to somebody else, and that'll be it. That's it. That defines their life. They're never going to get over it. And they'll just continue to decline. I've seen it in my own life and friends and family. So what is it about those people that can build that resiliency for change? Because everything changes, and we're wired for no change, right? If
Yeah.
it worked yesterday, evolutionarily wise, in your brain says, dude, it worked yesterday. Okay, let's just do it all again today because we're safe, we're happy, everything's good. But life changes, everything changes,
Everything changes.
I watched the show this morning. You guys made an awesome point, and it was basically that people we have a habit of not breaking it and not fixing it if it ain't broken, right? Like you said, it's like if it's working, let's not change it, right? But we live in a day and age of technology, right? Where literally every day we wake up, it's something new, it's something different, right? So sticking in that right is not something that we can do, and we've seen that right up to our government right now, right? Talk about cannabis legalization. We have people in the Senate that have been there for how many years? That if it ain't broke, we're not fixing it. Everything seems to work now. We're fine. And they're really not open to the conversation, right? Like we've seen our Congress very open to the conversation, very bipartisan, very, very supportive of the legalization. But when it gets into our Senate, I don't know where these guys have been under a rock for 80 years. You know what I mean? Like you said, we do have, and we talked about this last week again with Sherry. You know what I mean? It's like where do we draw the line of research, right? Like, we constantly use that excuse in America here. Like, we need the research, but we won't authorize anybody to do the research. We have the DEA that's supposed to issue licenses for research for the last 4 years. And now they're getting sued by all these people that won those rights to do the research, right? Because they're waiting to do research. We want to get this ball rolling. The resiliency is you guys, it was a great show for me because like I was talking to Sherry, this past week has not been easy for me. We've been off Facebook, we've had all sorts of issues. Like it feels like we're treading water and getting nowhere, right? And talking to Sherry this morning and you guys, we're talking about today, like I've had 4 or 5 phone calls this morning about people getting kicked off, suspended. All of us cannabis supporters or us activists are getting really, we're in the crosshairs right now, which I don't understand, because as we grow more legal, it seems like we're getting more restricted, right? Like as we grow statewide from a medical level, right? I was suspended for 5 days for posting the banner behind me, right? And obviously it's a medical banner. It's not supporting anything. It's not promoting anything, right? It's promoting the show. So it's really weird how it's happening. And I've seen people from years ago getting flagged on material they posted, and it's just it's unique, right? So resiliency is everything right now.
It is. And I like to
roll with it.
And how I like to bring up resiliency is cannabinoids. Cannabis is an amazing adaptogen that helps us to adapt to stress. So that can improve our ability to be resilient. And I'll just give you an example for myself, because when I was sick and suffering and dying, that's part of my story, I thought that was it. That was it. This is how my life is going to be. I am not going to be a productive member. I'll never be a nurse again. I'm just, my life is over. And I truly felt that until cannabis came into my life. It was that aha moment. It pulled me out of the story of sickness and illness. And I was able to look at things from a different perspective. It truly helped me to adapt to what was going in my life. It helped to mitigate side effects from pharmaceuticals. It helped to bridge the gap from what I wasn't getting from traditional medicine. And over time, as I started to feel better using the plant and other tools to nourish my endocannabinoid system, I was able to come off those pharmaceuticals. And then the resiliency was me stepping through multiple challenges, because when you're sick and suffering and dying and want to die because you're that sick, you have control issues because you can't control anything. So basically coming through that and then working with mental health providers that understand, trauma, medical trauma, pharmaceutical trauma, the traumatic response, how we move through that for post-traumatic growth and healing, and cannabis is an amazing tool that can help us do that.
Yeah. And literally it has that effect on the amygdala, right? The amygdala is involved in that fight or flight response, always being anxious, the cortisol release, all of the hormones and neurotransmitters. Well, cannabis has that effect on dampening down that amygdala response, right? So you don't fly into fight or flight automatically. You're like, okay, all right, I don't have to get freaked out. Perfect example is I'm not a road rage driver anymore. And believe me, I grew up here in Massachusetts. And if you cut me off, I'd run you off the road. Absolutely. Now I'm like,
whatever.
They must be having a bad day. All right, take care. I'm just going to move along now.
Right? Well, that's it. It's you choose your responses now, right? I mean,
it gives you that minute to choose it, right?
Yep. It's like you said, that instant reaction where you might fly off the handle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're in a day and age now, even I think just we need to learn how to be nice to each other. We need to learn how to get along again. Like we this last year between all of our between our racism.
It's a pandemic, dude. We've never nobody alive has ever experienced this, okay? It's like new for everybody.
Look at
multiple pandemics.
Right? Multiple. And everybody, right before pandemic, everybody forgets we were rioting. We were there was a huge thing going on with racism in our country with our police systems, right? We went right from that one aspect where we're holding down cities all over the country, right? Into a pandemic, right? And we still have these issues going on. And then we roll into an election season.
That's from the
craziest
four
of all time.
Right? The four pandemics. We have medical corona
all at
pandemic,
once.
the political pandemic.
Thank God for cannabis.
It's truly an adaptogen, absolutely helping people to adapt to stress and to keep moving forward on their lives.
I think the best thing we did in this pandemic was make it an essential commodity, right? Like cannabis is an essential commodity. We needed it. They made it for patients in most states, pretty much. Recreation in most states was allowed as well, right to the point where they authorized curbside delivery. Now, 6 years ago, would you ever imagine that Massachusetts would allow curbside deliveries of cannabis?
No.
Right?
No. Well, I'm going to tell you, 6 years ago, I was just getting my medical card. I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know that I didn't know it. So I was literally, when I got sick, it was 2012, and that's when Massachusetts became legal medically. I didn't know that. They didn't teach cannabinoid therapeutics in nursing school. This wasn't advertised. I didn't know about medical cannabis program in Massachusetts. And I truly feel that if clinicians, doctors, nurses, practitioners had an understanding of the endocannabinoid system, I probably wouldn't have suffered as long as I have, or I did.
And that's why we do what we do.
That's why we do what we do. Yeah. Truly. So
no, it really, yes, exactly. You know what I mean? I think it slows the world down. I mean, right now it's one of the number one selling commodities, right? I mean, cannabis is setting records in states all across the country.
Maine's number one cash crop now.
Yeah, it's
over blueberries and lobsters. Oh no!
Right, and if you think about that in retrospect, I mean, how long has their legal system been going on? Since October? And it's our number one agricultural crop.
Absolutely. What have they been out? It's been, the adult use has been what, a month?
Yeah, it's like October 9th.
Yeah, it's already the number one cash crop.
But they did a beautiful thing in Maine. It's kind of like what they did in New Jersey. They set it up. They didn't rush into it. I mean, they had issues where they were hiring people to set up their cannabis system there that worked out, and they went through a few phases of it. But they did a beautiful thing with their dispensary systems, right? Like, it's not a seed to sale. It's not a unilateral system where, these guys are being required to be responsible for everything, right? Like they're utilizing a co-op in essence of the best growers in the state, which I think is amazing, right? Now go to Maine, and some of the stuff that I see people bring it back from Maine, from the dispensaries, has been amazing quality. Amazing prices, which is the other thing that we got to talk about, right? Like the price differences between Vermont, Maine, Mass, all of our corresponding states on the East Coast, and then you got to look at the West Coast, right? You can go buy an ounce for $90 out there. We're not getting that in Mass. You know what I mean? There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to do, right? And especially with health is the biggest thing for us. We talk about it a lot. I mean, people give me flack. I'm a blunt smoker, but hey, bad habits are hard to break, I guess. But it is truly unique, the impact it has. Now, Sherry, we haven't got to talk to you quite yet.
My story.
Yeah, you got to have your story.
Oh God,
Sherry's backstory, because it's a doozy.
It is a doozy. And can I tell you, and my story, I present it when I'm doing conferences because it is truly extraordinary. It's like the name of my book is "You Can't Make This Shit Up." Seriously, you can't.
That's a great. Great title.
Great title, right?
Yeah.
You can't make this shit up. So basically, I was a nurse. I went to Boston College, graduated in 1988, was a nurse in all the major Boston hospitals. And I got sick in 2012. I was working at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, Children's Hospital, and the Brigham and Women. So I was within 3 institutions. I was a clinical nurse liaison, medical center specialist. I saw between 20 and 30 patients a day. I got sick while I was working, ended up in the intensive care unit with a really bad gastrointestinal infection and literally almost died of being septic. That started a long journey of, I would say, circling the drain of despair. So it was one pharmaceutical after another, one diagnosis after another. So, you know, this whole gastrointestinal infection compromised my whole body, not being able to eat, difficulty sleeping, my mental health suffered, agoraphobia. I became afraid to leave the house. I'm still dealing with issues with that, complex PTSD, surgeries being denied, medications being denied, stacking of medications, side effects, literally adverse effects, horrible, horrible. And I was literally circling the drain of despair is how I call it. I did everything that the doctors told me to do. But the other part that's very interesting about my story is that I was also engaging in all of the other health and wellness activities to the best of my ability. I was engaging in all of those things that we tell patients to do that support and nourish their endocannabinoid system. I went to chiropractic care, acupuncture, essential oils, aromatherapy, saw a shaman, I did energy work, saw a nutritionist, had a psychiatrist, did cognitive behavioral therapy. I went to the pain clinic, I had injections. Literally did everything I could to heal and nothing worked. And it was a nurse that was one of my clients for reconnective healing and energy work. She was a nursing colleague of mine that was one of my clients, came to my house with a joint, 70 years old. And she came out of the cannabis closet with me and she said, Sherry, get with the program. She held up a joint. And so I'm sitting there in bed and I'm going, what are you kidding me? You're bringing me weed? How could this possibly work for me when nothing else has worked? I never learned about medical cannabis. And so she kind of put me in the place. Get with the program, Sherry. I want to tell you a little secret. She says, I've been using cannabis every day since I was 17, just a little bit of cannabis. I'm 70 years old. That's 53 years of using cannabis. I've never been hospitalized and I'm not on any ongoing medications. Now, granted, I know this isn't for everyone, but I had to look at that. Number one. And number two, I also had to look at the fact, which she disclosed to me, is that her father was a pharmacist here in Massachusetts and back in the early 1900s, and they carried cannabis. They carried cannabis oil in the pharmacy. She's actually given me some of the bottles of the oil that her father had in his pharmacy. So she basically told me to get with the program. You have nothing to lose. You're dying. And she was right. So I smoked and I immediately got pain relief. I immediately I felt like my head was cracked open and consciousness poured in, and I was pulled out of the story of sickness and the trajectory of illness and misery and despair and victimhood, literally. And I was able to see things from a different perspective. And I was high, but I'll tell you what, it felt good. And I said, you know what? I got to figure this out. She's right. There's something to this. I got to figure this out. I didn't want to die anymore. I had some relief. And so what I needed to do is I embarked upon that journey. I got my medical card. The part that's interesting about my story that's very different from a lot of the other nurses is I was so plagued with stigma. My mom blocked me on Facebook. She wrote me out of her will. This was just for a little while. I was truly afraid to let people know. So I delved into the recreational community, the community of caregivers, and because I wanted to see how people did it every day. Like, how do you use this every day and function? Like, I just needed to learn and to feel comfortable in my own skin, being around people that did this, that made medicine for people in the community, that used it all the time, used it multiple different ways. So with the education that I got is something that I would never, ever get in a webinar or a classroom or an expo. It was true experiential learning and true connection with people in the community that cared and showed me what healers do. You know, the healers, not dealers. Well, I'm here to tell you that's the truth. And I remember sitting there one day, you know, talking to some of the people in the community, and they're like, you got to do this. You have to become a cannabis nurse. My mom will listen to you. My dad will listen to you. You know, my family members that are, you know, have blackballed me for using cannabis. If they know that a nurse is doing this, you're going to make a difference. And so I said, listen, if I can figure this out, how to make this work for me, you can call me the green nurse. And so basically I'm married. So I got that experiential learning. I figured out how to make cannabis work for me. CBD was the game changer for me that allows me to tolerate THC without being impaired. I learned about the endocannabinoid system and all of the different things that support and nourish the endocannabinoid system. And from there, I just continued on my journey. I started to learn. I basically took all of the skills that I've had as a nurse for over 30 years and decided to bring them together and to create the Green Nurse with Mark. So, what happened?
I'm still here.
You leaned back into the universe.
I think we're all struggling with internet stability lately. With everything.
Oh yeah.
I just got one of those connections unstable, and my camera goes through the internet. So,
it's like he disappeared. I'm like, am I that boring?
Well, no. Let me ask a question real quick. This is something that is behind, as you guys are talking about your stories. We're talking about people who've been smoking their whole lives, right? I'm one of those people who've been smoking since I was 13. Got into it because it was, it was a culture. It was a hip hop culture. Growing up in Boston, we smoked blunts, right? Like it was just the thing to do. For you guys though, have you guys been consumers most of your lives, or did it take this step in your life to get you to understand it? And did you guys have your own stigmas against it being
no
that you're in?
I did not have my own stigma against it. I didn't understand it as medicine. I only understood cannabis to be recreational. I would say I was a recreational cannabis user, but not a lot. Like if, you know what I mean? If someone had it, I would do it. If, one of my friends was saying, oh yeah, a friend of mine's got whatever an ounce, do you want some? I'd take some, but it wasn't a regular thing. It was kind of like whenever I felt like it, but I didn't, like I said, I wasn't anti-cannabis ever. I was all about whatever floats your boat.
I have a different story, Joseph. I did a lot of cannabis between the ages of 12 and 17. And my dad was a state cop, right? Career state cop. Mom was raised by Christian Scientists, so they never used medication. So I rebelled and I used a lot of cannabis. Then I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17. That was it. My cannabis use ended and I never picked it up. Like when I got out 6 years later, I tried weed again, and I'm super sensitive to THC and I would have a panic attack every time I smoked. But being a trooper, I tried it like 2 or 3 more times. And, crawling under the dashboard of the car while your wife drives you home, it wasn't a pleasant experience. So I said, okay, just going to let it go. So I'm agnostic. I don't care if you use it, but I'm not going to use it. Thank you. I'm just going to say no. So I was a member of the American Nurses Association, Massachusetts chapter in 2016 when the adult use initiative was on the ballot. Guess what? I'm on the team of the ANA group who's working with Charlie Baker to oppose that measure. Oh,
no way.
Because I'm given information, and the information I'm given is that, boy, cannabis there are things we need to be concerned with. It's the regular government line, right? So I'm like, okay, well, all right. 2 years later, a year later, I get introduced to the real story and I start to be in the industry, right? And in the know about what this is really about. And then I learn to use the right amount of cannabis products that allow me to be healthy and allow my anxiety and depression to be relieved, allow me to be a more healthy individual. I got the real education behind the story. So now, I know where my sweet spots are with a THC limit, and I have my medical card. So for me, a 10 milligram edible is just about as good as it can get.
Now, you're the perfect person to talk to about this, right? Because you said, you consumed heavily at a younger age.
Yeah.
Into the military, that kind of changed everything for you. And the whole military is another conversation, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you came back on the medical side, what was the biggest difference from you? Because I think this is a conversation I have with a lot of people. It's like, where did you change the mentality? When did you go from a recreational mindset to the health mindset? That's the hardest thing for everybody, I think, to do in this, right? Because Right, the green nurse, right?
Yeah.
But that transition to you, how difficult was that, or was it just an eye-opening experience? Like, did you, obviously as a kid, you didn't understand that there was a health benefit to this, correct?
No, none at all. No. I guess you know what? It was because because I was a new nurse and I hadn't had a lot of experience in the healthcare area, right? I wasn't entrenched in it. And I've always had this, me personally, I've always had this inquisitive side. So I don't just push stuff off without experiencing it first, right? If I experience it, then I know, then I can make a judgment on my own. I guess I just don't listen to other people except for Charlie Baker. I was listening to him. But I started to see other people who were using this. Like we'd get feedback from people who had moms and dads who were in hospice and at the end of life, and they would send us letters after the fact. Jenny and I, they'd send us letters after the fact and say, thank God that they had cannabis in their lives at the end because they were lucid all the way up to the end. They didn't have to use as much morphine. Their pain was controlled, and we were able to talk to them right up to the last day. I mean, that to me was precious, for families to have that time with their loved ones at the end, where normally the trajectory is load them up with morphine until they just expire.
Yep.
And they don't have that lucidity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
talking about that last week. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what happened last week. I had a bad head injury in Mass probably 15, 20 years ago, right? Severe puncture wounds. The doctor was actually really cool. At first, not at all. He gave me a medication for my head and about 7 for the side effects of all the medication. Went in and he kept giving me more medication on top of the medications. Not, I'm complaining about it. Why would I need more medication, right? There's something obviously wrong. At the end of it, he had recommended cannabis, which blew me away. And I'm like, this was, 15, 20 years ago. I'm
unheard
like,
of.
I'm not doing that. No, I'm not going to get that big X on my address and, let everybody know that what I'm doing and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's interesting to see, that long ago, how doctors were already looking into it. But like, as you said, the endocannabinoid system is not something that's taught, right? We don't teach them. So medical professionals do not get that. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask Sherry and Mark as well is, we're talking about medical side, the education of the medical professionals, right? What about therapy? What about people that you utilize psychiatrists, right? Like, are there psychiatrists out there that are supportive of cannabis, like in the medical industry, or is
Mine
that
is
quite too yet?
My psychiatrist and my cognitive behavioral therapist support it, and actually, they've seen a huge difference in, huge difference. Like even asking them, they just said that you're adapting to stress a lot better. So, because I asked for feedback. Some of my best sessions with my cognitive behavioral therapist is right before I smoked. I'd smoke and then go in. And so the interesting thing is that, they're coming more on board. My daughter actually is, she's in school right now. She wants to become a pharmacist. And she's like, by the time I'm done getting pharmacies, there's going to be cannabinoid pharmacy schools. So she's already thinking ahead.
Oh yeah.
So the psychiatrist, and the other thing that's interesting too about mental health is, taking care of a lot of patients that we have seen come through the Green Nurse was referred to us by mental health, either counselors or psychiatrists, which is really interesting, seeing the benefit of cannabinoids and just the educational piece of it.
That may be more of a recognition that the tools that they actually have in their bag, the pharmaceutical tools that they get to use, just don't work that well. I mean, the brain is so complex. We're so complex that, these tools that they've had in the bag just haven't worked that well. So they're at the point where they probably tried so many things with their patient that they say, hey, give it a shot. It can't hurt.
It can't hurt. And then that opens up.
We'll try it.
And then
Timothy, how are you?
Hi, Tim.
Oh, we have Tim on. You're muted though, buddy.
There we go. Yep, I was muted. Hi, everybody. Hey. Sorry I was a little late. We got a crazy day today, a little flying crisis in the last quarter of the game, but here we are.
Hey, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Welcome to your show.
Good to see you, Sherry. Good to see you, Mark. Nice to meet you in person. Heard so much about you.
Hey, good to see you.
we're just discussing their stories right now, which is they both have amazing stories, which lead right into so many questions because it's like, you guys see the back end of things with the pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that. What is the obviously the pharmaceutical companies have their hold on everything, right? Our government, our literally everything, right?
The system was built.
What do you guys see on from their end towards cannabis? Is it something they're just trying to shut out? Is it something they're open and willing to work with and potentially switch over to? I mean, we have Epidiolex, we have all these things going on in our country.
Sure.
I think if they can make money, they're into it. They can make some money.
I think they're all interested in it. I just don't think that it's such a different methodology of healing, right? It's not like take the pill, it has its effect, and it either works or it doesn't, really soon. It's like a long period of time to work with someone to get them to where they need to be. And that's, I don't think that there's enough money in that sort of modality.
And that's the part that's interesting too, that Mark brings up, is that everyone's different. And a one size fits all approach never works. Blanket approach never works. People's cannabinoid requirements change over time as they change. That includes the method of administration, the cannabinoid profile, the terpene profile, how you're consuming it, how often you're consuming it. So truly, when we're working with patients, plant medicine and pharmaceuticals can go hand in hand. They can be integrated. But plant medicine doesn't rely on a watch or a clock or a pill bottle or a prescription, right? So it's really teaching people how to work with their bodies and to listen to their bodies and to ask themselves critical questions. That's what it really is it's patient empowerment, to teach people all the different tools that exist so they can make the choice and truly heal. When you figure, me figuring it out, can I tell you I was higher than life itself, higher than any cannabis I've ever smoked in my life, was to figure out how to take care of myself, figure out how to get off of pharmaceuticals, figure out how to keep myself out of the doctor's office and out of the hospital. That's huge. And if you can teach patients to do that, it's going to become grounded into their body and they're going to continue on that journey. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, you make a great point. Our bodies change over time. I mean, they do. We're from kids to medium adults. Our bodies' needs change. And I think as you address your cannabinoid systems, right, your body's going to get tuned with that, right? You guys, we're going to break away to a segment here that you guys had earlier. So I'm going to lean into this because we're talking about medicines, right? We're talking about the pharmaceutical industry. We talked about a little bit earlier about the rec and the medical industries crossing over, right? Like you were saying, strain specific, right? This is something that I like to talk about a lot because every strain has its own values of cannabinoids and terpenes, right? Which that's the medical benefits, right? So, whether or not, the thing that drives me nuts is the older lady who is sick, who's smoking a vape cart, you know what I mean? And she's like, oh, it's wedding cake. I love this, working great for me. And as we all know, the difference between strain specifics and stuff like distillates or edibles, which, you guys talked about in your segment, is the fact that, when people are making product, they're usually using a blended oil or a blended distillate because they can buy it off the market. It helps them with, dosaging and stuff like that, because you could buy X milliliter a bottle, put it into this X recipe, and then this is your breakdowns, right? It just makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, you're decarbon, making your own stuff, trying to figure out what your percentages are, and every strain is different. And you guys made a great point when we talk about indicas, sativas, hybrids, right? That's kind of like the lost art of cannabis, I think, that people still attach to, because through these years of hybridizations, you can get Gorilla Glue, something you guys brought up. Like, I could tell you from my experience, I've had multiple Gorilla Glues, ones that make me want to run through a wall, ones that don't want to let me get off a couch, ones that get me really focused in the work, right? We talk about the healthy stoners, right? The productive stoners, right? Like you were saying, when you go and you eat something, you want to calm down, but there can be effects to that, right? We can all go smoke some Durban poison and be agitated for a few hours, right? Because one of our biggest things that I've seen through patients is not necessarily the couch lock that they're complaining about. It's the it's the energy. It's that, you know, they feel like their heart's beating a mile a minute. They're just wicked anxiety. They just shoots up.
And that's why CBD is so important. I can't even tell you enough. CBD allows patients to tolerate THC, A, at higher doses if they need it, and B, can mitigate some of those crazy, horrible side effects that some people experience. You know, CBD is a true game changer for patients. The other thing I'm going to talk about inhalation is with medical patients, and even with the experience that's in CBD can help patients to craft the experience that they're looking to have. So depending upon if they take the CBD before, during, or after, that can affect the effect that they have. So being able to teach someone how to craft their own experience and how they want to feel using the medicine. So inhalation, for most part, for patients, we usually use that as needed. You know, we're finding more with the oils, capsules, tinctures, gummies. You know, those are where the medicine is, and then the inhalation is really great for as needed. So it's really truly about getting that steady level of cannabinoids in our system, because when you hear us teach about the endocannabinoid system, we're producing cannabinoids upon demand, depending upon what's going on in our body. And if we're not making enough, then messages aren't getting where they need to go. So it makes sense that we would microdose multiple times during the day with multiple different products, including inhalation, if that is something that you truly need. That's just my 2 cents.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize too, when they do consume edibles and they do take a THC product where they feel that way, right? CBD is a great neutralizer for that. You know, if you have an oil, black pepper, you can chew on some black pepper as well. Another great source to bring that high down, to help, you know, level that high, right?
Yeah, a lot of patients will say too, though, a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want to do CBD. It's going to ruin my high. It's going to wreck it. It's going to ruin how it works. It's going to knock it off. No, it's going to help it.
Right.
You can control your CBD.
Right.
We've talked about this before. And again, this goes back to the crossover of the two industries, right? Like, you know, people are used to smoke and want to feel that high, right? But when you're doing something that, you know, with full cannabinoids, right? So you have a full spectrum, whatever you're doing. So you have all the cannabinoids and you have what we call the entourage effect, right? That is not the kick you in the face kind of high that people are really thinking that they need, right? So really it's about education on what you're going to eat or consume or how you're going to do it, because, you know, with an edible, it's not the same high as inhalation, right?
No.
It's a complete
different drug altogether. Yeah.
A dab is all that combined times 10, you know what I mean? So you have to be prepared for what you're about to embark into, right? With that being said, we should get to your segment. You guys have a great segment about the Leafly's top strains, right? So why don't you give us a little insight to the segment we're about to watch here?
Well, we wanted to do something fun, you know, because sometimes we can be a little serious. And, you know, strain names are always very interesting and fun to me. And the part that I really like to talk about strain names is just like where they've come from, where the mix is, like, it's just fun. And so Leafly had a top 20 strain. And so we decided or the 2020 top 5 strains. So we decided to go through those, say what the strain was, the other types of, you know, terpenes that are in there, the different cannabinoids, the effect, and the name, you know, some of the other components of the plant and the effect that people have. So it was kind of fun. It was really fun. And then
always fun.
It was really
AFA
fun.
Daily Dose is always fun, Sherry.
Yeah.
Now, there is one commonality with all your strains in this segment, right? They're all relaxing. They're all, you know, get you to that point of comfort, right?
Go figure, in a pandemic, dude, people want to have something that just is a little relaxing.
Yes.
It's interesting being in this industry, right? Because everybody goes through their phases, right? For a while, everybody wants sativas because they want to go out and get shit done. They want to be productive, right? And now they all want indicas because they just don't want to deal with it, right? It's like we were talking about earlier, resiliency, right? A lot of people are just in that point now where it's like, man, and with perfect understanding, right? I mean, a lot of people are out of work. They are dealing with the holidays. They're dealing with everything we discussed earlier, which is not fun, right? But the main point of this is to understand your cannabis, right? Learn your strains, know what works for you. Like you said, even with pharmaceuticals, this is why I don't get with people, like some pharmaceuticals don't work well with people. You know what I mean? It's people with ADHD are going to have a different and usually an adverse effect in somebody who doesn't, right? And we've seen this with pharmaceuticals as well. So it's not like it's a new thing for us in the medical field, right? It's just a matter of finding what works best for you. And you as a patient have to be understanding of that too. So when you go buy a bottle of CBD off Amazon, which we don't recommend by any means, but if you do, and it doesn't work, you don't give up, right? Like when it gives you something, if it doesn't work, what's the first thing you do? You call your doctor and you go back to see him, right? And you find what works for you and you stick with that, like you were saying, until it doesn't work anymore. And then, you know, through technology and research, we'll find something better probably in the next few days, right? So knowing your strains is the most uniquely important thing to me that I don't think people understand, because again, they get lost in the marketing game. Like, oh, hey, wedding cake on this you know, cart or in this or in that. And it's like you said, like when we're making gummies, they're not strain specific all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which unfortunately, the medical industry is a shame, right? Because that's what you want to be able to do, is have somebody come into your office and be like, what's wrong with you? Oh, okay. Well, and with that headache, these 3 strains work great. You know what I mean? Which one would you like to try? Here are your effects. Here's the flavors. Here's everything. And then for me, it's always a nose sniff. Like, you know, you can have 15 jars of cannabis in front of somebody and they tell me, hey, look, what's your favorite? It's not going to be their favorite. You know what I mean? It's whatever tickles your nose, whatever makes you feel good. It's those terps, you know? I love weed. I love it. We love to talk about it. But that being said, we're going to go into the first edited version of you guys on our show, the Canna Talk. So hopefully it all works out right. It's a longer segment, guys, than usual. But again, it's very important information. We got a 15-minute segment, so stay with us. Here it is, guys, the Green Nurse with Canna Talk.
So are we on, like, are we silenced?
We're live.
No, we're still all live.
We're still live, Sherry.
Okay.
I'm trying to find my video.
Dude, like we were talking about, technology this week has been cuckoo.
Technology this week.
It's
Everyone smile.
Sunstorms, you know, I just read about that. It's like everything, literally.
I got locked out of my Facebook account for 2 days for absolutely no reason. No idea why, just random, like that was it. And
I'm still living the 5-day
bizarre.
ban. So, all right, guys, here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse, a daily dose of AFA.
Where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing. It is all about feeling those high vibes, hope, inspiration, growth, and healing, so you can have an AFA day. So today is really fun. This is a fun one because this makes me laugh and giggle.
Oh yeah.
It's a Wild West Wednesday. We have recent news, you know, research, things that are coming up in the, you know, in the country around with cannabis around the world globally. But what I saw, and I thought it would be fun to discuss, was the top strains of 2020.
Okay. Now let's set the base here for folks. You know, we talk about strains, we talk about varieties. Now in the medical space, we talk about chemovar. Right. Yeah. So we're all using these different words. We're trying to figure out how to address it, because, you know, it's always been indica and sativa, right? It's what we talk about. Indica is going to be very body high and sativa is going to be uplifting. It's kind of all melded together now because of the interbreeding. So it's difficult to say anything's a pure indica or a pure sativa anymore. So now we're talking about what's the chemovar, and honestly, in the science area, you know, we're looking at what are the specific ingredients or chemical components of each one of these varieties. Yeah. So here we go. What are the top ones in 2020?
And I'm just going to pipe in on that just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oftentimes, too, when you're shopping for products, too, you're not going to see a bottle of CBD or a bottle of tincture that says ice cream cake.
Yeah.
You're not. Because the reason why is they take the different cannabinoid profiles, the terpenes, and sometimes they can mix and match it to what a particular strain or chemovar is, and oftentimes they can't.
Right.
So if you're shopping for flour, then yes, that's the chemovar. You're going to look at the cannabinoids, the terpenes, all of the different things. But other like capsules, gummies, tinctures aren't going to be so strain specific. It's just not how it works.
Right.
And and the strain effects I have found to be more relevant to if you're using FICO, full extract cannabis oil, and inhalation. You know what I mean? Those sometimes those really mimic the effects. But anyway, so the top strains.
All right, let her rip.
Okay, so I like this one. GMO cookies, garlic, mushrooms, and onions, or also known as garlic cookies.
Ooh.
So they say it's a cross between, it's a strong indica, a cross between, ChemDog
And GCS.
So anyway, relaxed, euphoric, happy, uplifted, and sleepy. So I like how it does uplifted and sleepy in the same sentence, which is kind of
Now here's the thing: who doesn't want to be relaxed, euphoric, happy, uplifted, or sleepy? I like all of those things.
Me too.
Maybe not all at once, but
maybe not all at once. Yeah. Okay, so GMO cookies, garlic, mushrooms, and onions.
Yep.
Strong indica, relaxed, euphoric, uplifted, and sleepy. So when I think of indica, I think of definitely more of a chill, mellow feeling. Okay, so that's one. Ice cream cake is number two. Ice cream cake is a cross between wedding cake and gelato. Ice cream cake, interesting, indica dominant. Has been described as a creamy flavor profile with sweet hints of vanilla and sugary dough. It's the classic terpene profile of limonene and caryophyllene. So I look at this. This sounds really interesting. Sounds delicious, actually.
It does.
Citrus, peppery, floral.
Relaxed, happy, euphoric, sleepy, uplifted.
Right. So that was number two. Number three.
Slurricane.
Yeah, another indica dominant strain, which is a cross between Do-si-do, which I've done before, and Purple Punch. So it's interesting that I've done these two other ones but haven't done the combined.
Right.
And so slurricane smell is citrusy, peppery, and pine, and the effects are euphoric, happy, relaxed, sleepy, and uplifted.
And then we've got Original Glue, aka Gorilla Glue or GG4. And it's a hybrid, right?
It's a hybrid. And the interesting, it's euphoric and relaxing. Now, I've had a lot of experience with this one. The Original Gorilla Glue, just because I liked the name. I wanted to see it. And I wanted to see how I could actually be uplifted and sleepy. And often people have described glue to the couch. So when I first have inhaled that, it's given me energy, right? And it feels good. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like you smooth into, I'm going to, So it's a really good one for me to do in the evening when I want to get a few things done that I don't like to get done. And then I want to stop, pause, and just relax.
Right.
And this last one is the one that I would think that I would have been using all the time. It's called Miracle
Alien Cookies.
Alien Cookies is definitely a strain name that is very appealing to me because I think that there is so much wisdom in cosmic consciousness. This is definitely a strain. Its ancestry is ChemDog, Starfighter, and alien technology. I love these names.
Oh, they're so good.
Right. But here it is. You ready? This is how it's been described.
Yeah.
Miracle Alien Cookies has been known for sending smokers into outer space. So there you go.
Never leave the comfort of your own home.
Right. Here it is. The effects.
Cosmic journey.
Yeah. Effects are euphoric, relaxed, and productive. So that's really interesting. Going into outer space and being productive.
That's a good combination.
And it smells citrusy, orange, and musky. So if you or someone you love is having trouble sleeping, or you have chronic pain, or you're suffering with chronic debilitating illness, if you want to learn how to incorporate cannabinoids into your daily wellness regimen, or if you're new to exploring recreational cannabis and want to learn how to have a safe experience, contact us at The Green Nurse, www.thegreennurse.com. And with every appointment that's booked, you will get a free bottle of Nurse Mark CBD while they are in stock, and they're going fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And for the providers out there, for all of you who are out there helping people be healthy, if you want to learn more about how to add coaching, cannabis, helping people utilize this amazing plant in a safe and effective way, we have an amazing program, a mentorship community program that you can join us, participate in, and just gain that knowledge. We'd love to have you. Again, Sherry and I have dedicated our lives to this. This is our passion. This is what we're about. We're going to this thing globally. Oh, and by the way, the UN just suggested that they reschedule cannabis right last week. So United Nations said, hey, we see the benefit. And now here we are. So join us. www.thegreennurse.com. That's it. That's a wrap, folks. Have an AFA day.
All right, a great segment right there. Like we said, talking about cannabis, cannabinoids, things that we should understand. You guys talk about a group to join, right? That you guys are putting together. Why don't you explain that really quick? Now that we kind of just segued out of that, explain how people can get involved in this.
Oh, I love the way Sherry talks about this, Joseph. Sherry, just do it. You're so good.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to share with you just about our platform and what we offer. So the Green Nurse is a global community of nurses and health professionals who provide vetted products and services to support the utilization of plant medicine and other progressive therapies to nourish our endocannabinoid system. And we teach all about that on our platform. So if you're a client or a clinician, we have something for you because we've sourced out what patients and providers are looking for. And we're truly dedicated to bringing those vetted products and services to the people that come to us. So we offer client services, medical cards, cannabis consultations, energy healing, and other progressive complementary therapies. We also offer clinician services. This is the part that gets really exciting. We have mentorship and community with ongoing education and support, with an opportunity for these clinicians to become one of our consulting practitioners as we start to expand across the country. We also offer products, vetted products and services for both patients and providers with our Green Nurse affiliate program. So truly, to summarize, we're a platform aimed towards both clients and clinicians as the one-stop shop for Green Nurse approved education and product needs. How was that commercial?
Example. That was beautiful. I'm going to give you an example of the other modalities that she's talking about, right? Anything that helps you to be healthy and affects your endocannabinoid system. We've got a breathwork program starting on January 25th that we're going to start to promo here pretty soon. And it's with a guy out of Sao Paulo, Brazil by the name of Jacques Taron. I was lucky enough to meet Jacques and become a friend. And I participated in one of his week-long group sessions a couple of months ago. And it is absolutely fucking amazing. If you haven't done breath work before, whoo, you want to be high without using any drugs, sit in on this one. I'm telling you, it's a 6-week program and we'll be promoing it, but it is absolutely out of this world. And that's the kind of thing we're going to have along with it. Yeah, so you've done it too.
Yeah, so I'll just explain. I'll explain just my own experience with it because I do breath work, but not like this. It was a 15-minute experience that I had, and I have had shamanic journeying. I've done some psychedelic experiences before, but this breath work truly brought me into a state of mind, and then completely having with my eyes closed, I felt like I was out of my body and then coming right back in. It was really, really cool, and woke up, felt really refreshed. It was very extraordinary. So I'm so excited that we're going to be able to offer this on the platform because as breath work supports and nourishes the endocannabinoid system, truly.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, for sure. So many amazing things. It sounds like an awesome experience for anybody to get involved with, right? Especially if you're interested in cannabis. So I would reach out to the Green Nurse. You can find them on their website, right? The Green Nurse, and find out more information about this. Now, we're going to shift gears here a little bit, and I want to there's a couple of things I'm going to say for the end for both you guys because there's a lot of new news. I've been like Tim and most of the cannabis industry this last week where we've been suspended. We've been off Facebook. They're not allowing us to like, share, comment, nothing. So I apologize to anybody who's been following in the weeds and thinks I've disappeared. We haven't gone anywhere. It's just Facebook doesn't like us this week. We're going to switch over to Tim here. We got a lot of new news today I want to discuss, everything from Weedmaps to a couple different things. So we're going to go there. And we're going to start the segment off really quick, and we're going to do this really quick. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Tim. All right, Timmy. So now one of the biggest things I want to talk about is start to show off is Weedmaps, right? We've seen some information this last week how they were going public, right? A company going public on a stock exchange, right? Now, isn't there still an open investigation in Weedmaps that no one's discussed for a while, Tim? Does this hinder them going public?
It could, be a problem. I don't want to say too much because I honestly, I don't know all that much more than probably what you read, just the superficial kind of stories. So, is there something going on? Any of these companies going public, any cannabis companies going public right now have a ton of issues. Especially in the United States. That's why you see so many of them listing on Canadian stock exchanges, specifically the CSE, which a lot of companies trade on. First of all, you can't have anything to do with adult use if you're going to list on a U.S. exchange. So you can't have any cultivation cannabis, which is Weedmaps. They send, people. Would there be problems? Are there going to be problems? Are they overvalued? Are they trying to push their stock for a little bit too much in an IPO? Is it going, all of these things are tenuous with any cannabis company. And when you have rumors of an investigation, whether it's true, whether it's not true, whether it's just rumor, that can often be enough to tank an IPO in the best of situations. And cannabis companies aren't in the best of situations right now. A lot of institutional investors are not getting involved. You have retail investors, which are, kind of people who pull up their E-Trade account or their, Charles Schwab online trading and buy 10 shares of something, which is great. I mean, that's, more people should be doing that, but it's very predictable. People, as soon as things start to go down, they pull all the money out, as soon as they go up, they throw all their money in. They kind of don't get it right. It's supposed to be the exact opposite. So it will have a lot of effect on these cannabis stocks, just rumors, concerns. People read something, they don't know the source of what they're reading. And that happens a lot with investments. You get a lot of paid advertising that looks like press reports, that looks like legitimate news and stories that are really nothing but PR. And that can go both ways. That can go for and against any company. So, they've had enough problems. I would not be going public right now. That would not be, I would want to wait if I were them. But, money is very difficult to come up with right now. A lot of the investors have dried up. There's a lot of let's wait and see right now. Let's see what's going to happen with the Safe Banking Act. Let's see what's going to happen, at the federal level. Let's see who's going to get the Senate. And this has happened all through 2019 with, we talked about how these market caps on these companies were just astronomical. And most of them, which had never made a cent. Most of them were losing millions, tens of millions a quarter, yet they had a $1.3 billion market cap. That was not going to continue, and that really, reality set in hard in 2019, and capital dried up. So going public's a good way to raise money if it works. I have questions if it's going to work.
It's going to be interesting to see the outcome of that because we all know the Weedmap story, the rumors, the being used to help target illegal growers. Like there's a lot behind the story. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and how Weedmaps comes out on top of this. Now, one of the big things I saw, and this was just released 4 hours ago, so I don't know if you saw the article, but it raises a great question that we all talk about. Residencies, right? Pennsylvania marijuana investor sues Missouri over a residency rule. So he sues Missouri's medical marijuana regulators, declaring that the state's residency requirement violates the U.S. Constitution.
Residency requirements are horrible. They're a bad idea. You can't tell people from one state that they cannot do a job in your state. That is against the Constitution. It's against everything. It's simply it's not a good idea. You can use preferences. That's okay. There are ways it can be done, but putting strict residency requirements, I will tell you, every time they've been challenged in court, they usually dropped before a decision is made because they know they're going to lose.
Right, didn't that happen in Maine?
So that originally in Arizona, so
Yeah.
Vermont considered it. It's fair faith in dealing, I mean, the states have obligations to each other. You can't put barriers up. You can't stop somebody from New Hampshire from coming in Vermont and working. You can't stop somebody from Vermont to going over to, New Hampshire to work. We are a country of states, and residency requirements on an industry, it's protectionist, and that's unconstitutional. You would have to show a valid, good reason, constitutional law. If you're going to violate somebody's constitutional rights, it has to survive what's known as strict or intermediate scrutiny. And you have to look and say, is the purpose of that more important than that particular constitutional right? Anti-discrimination, for example, privacy. There's a lot of areas that technically violate the Constitution, but because they have such an important impact on our society, the courts have said that's acceptable. But that's a very, very high bar. And when you start telling people from, Connecticut that they can't work in New York, or people in New York that they can't come and work in Vermont, in this industry, and you can't take part of it, that's going to lose in the courts every time, unless you have a damn good reason for saying so. And simply protecting our market and protecting our people is not a valid reason to.
Does this cross over to the medical patients? Like you brought up a great point about Vermont. It does not allow medical patients to come into our state, obviously, because we're a unilateral system. We go by numbers, right? Maine seems like Mark was saying, seems to they're open to everybody, right? It doesn't matter.
This is a little bit different. Now we're talking about the right to work in an industry, a residency requirement on being granted a license that everybody is entitled to. That's very, very different than a medical patient in a particular state. If you are a medical patient as part of a state medical cannabis program, because every state is different, because every state has a different program. Some don't have any program, some have legal adult use, and we got everything in between. So if you qualify as a resident and a patient, that can be excluded. They can say that this is for Vermont residents who have qualified under Vermont's laws. And in that case, if you're a medical patient, you would need to become a resident of that state, then sign up to that state's program. Now, what we're seeing is states starting to grant reciprocity. So they will honor a medical card from another state. And that's up to the individual states. Maine has done that. Vermont has not. Hawaii, I think, does reciprocity. There were only one, and then it started, getting more popular of a concept. Of course, once you have adult use, then it really doesn't matter. So, but there are very distinctions between overall licensing and employment and being a medical patient. Medical patients can be kept state to state.
Yeah.
Now, another interesting thing I saw, to skip gears again really quick here. The feds, here we go with another thing. This was announced a day ago on Marijuana Moment. The feds announced a $350,000 grant to help develop a method to distinguish hemp and marijuana. This is something that they tried to do about a year ago. Is this something we're gonna be able to do? I mean, obviously this is a big issue when people are getting busted with hemp and they're, obviously we've seen this on, right, whether it's hot or not. I mean, we've seen issues where people have gotten their hemp taken and confiscated because they thought it was cannabis, right? We saw it in New York. We've seen it recently where there's been a couple farms suing their local police systems because of, they knew it was hemp. They had paperwork for hemp. They had all the paperwork that they needed. How important is this?
Well, I mean, that's the entire grounds of the case we have right now here in Vermont, up in Essex County, with the search warrant being granted on the site of a cannabis plant. Whereas 20 years ago, the site of a cannabis plant was sufficient probable cause for a warrant because all cannabis was illegal. Now that you have, 900 registered hemp growers in the state of Vermont and hundreds of acres of licensed cultivation hemp, a cop seeing a cannabis plant in and of itself is no longer sufficient for a search warrant. How do you know if it's hemp? How do you know if it's marijuana? It's one single factor. It's not complicated. It's delta-9 THC content. Under the federal rule and under the Vermont rule. If your delta-9 THC content exceeds 0.3%, it is illegal marijuana. If your delta-9 THC content is below 0.3%, it is hemp. So can they come up with a device to test THC? Sure. Are they going to be able to use it in a form that is going to be deployable with individual law enforcement officers and used in a field without first violating the curtilage and violation of the house? You can't just walk up and go, I see a cannabis plant, I'm going to go onto your property and test it. Again, in order, you're putting the cart before the horse. In order to get onto somebody's property, in order to violate their rights of privacy, a police officer needs probable cause, not speculation. So, will it do any good? Sure. I mean, great. You know, I think the farmers would like it a lot more than law enforcement in terms of being able to have a device they can just wave over the plant and see the THC content, you know, watch it when they're going to get hot. I don't think cops should be going after pot at all. I don't care if it has 0.3 or 1% or 2%, 3% or 4%. That's not the issue. The issue is that nobody should ever be subject to law enforcement involvement because of cannabis. I don't care how much THC it has. That's the big picture. You know, absolutely. I mean, we just can't, you know. So I would say, yes, let's get a, you know, hemp marijuana device and let's give it to the farmers. Let's give it to the cultivators so they know what they're cultivating. So we don't have to worry about a hemp farmer having their entire crop burned down because there was a natural variation and they had a COA that says, you know, 0.28, and some law enforcement, you know, regulator comes in and got a 0.31. And now you're burning your entire crop and you just lost $60,000, $70,000 you invested in that crop. You know, and that stories like that just make us sick. You know, we heard from your friend in Massachusetts, it's just atrocious.
I have a question, just because this is a law question.
I love questions.
So say, for example, a hemp farmer does grow hot hemp, right? And I'm sure it's different for every state, but there is a way to process it to make it not hot anymore.
Correct. So you're talking about mitigation. And that was something
like I know that because I'm into formulating.
Right, of course. For the last 2 years, it was legal to mitigate hot hemp in Vermont. What happened is USDA's final interim rule, which did state no mitigation. And any state that allowed mitigation was not going to have their plan approved by the USDA. So Vermont, for example, in its 2020 regulations, removed remediation from the actual rules. In Vermont, if you got hot hemp, you can get it remediated. They're not, you know, we have a very supportive agency of agriculture. We have a very supportive, you know, governmental structure for our hemp industry. They like it. They want it to grow. They don't want to come down hard on people. So if you're slightly over and you have a test that says you're slightly under, the department will take your test, understanding the natural variation. If it's a little over, they will let you take it to an extractor. What they don't want to see are final products going out. So if you put out final products to a consumer, that better be under 0.3%, and there is
yes. That was the point.
They don't want THC with CBD products. You know, that's no bueno. But for the cultivator, there's definitely a little bit of leeway. In fact, we have a 1% total THC standard in Vermont, whereas most states are still maintaining the 0.3 total. A 0.3 total THC standard is death for the industry. You can't keep your THCA in any hemp crop below 0.3. It's impossible. You know, especially if, again, the natural variations of testing. We don't have consistent testing. You take 4 COAs of the exact same source material, you're going to get 4 different results. They may not be wildly different, but you'll get variations based on timing of the test, plant, you know, where you're on the plant you tested, and individual testing methods. So until we have a reliable, consistent, every time I test this vodka, it's 80 proof. I know this is 40% alcohol. It's 40% alcohol in this bottle, and this bottle, and this bottle. When we have that level of consistency, it's practically impossible. As you mentioned, we've got over 120 cannabinoids plus however many terpenes, you know, in any particular strain. And we're talking about combinations of all those things to determine. But if we could at least figure out how much Delta-9 THC is in a plant, and that number remains constant through every test, then I think it becomes easier. It becomes, at least you know where you're at. But I've seen cases where it's like, you know, and that it's state by state. Some states are more lenient. Massachusetts, Joe, you can tell that story. I forget that the cultivator's name, your friend there from Massachusetts, but
with Adam Souza on, who was what he was 0.3004, some ridiculous number like that, and they burned his crop. They didn't allow him to do remediation. This is something I want to bring Thomas in on too, because you know, I want to hear from a grower standpoint on this idea and this law and this unique this thing, because like you said here in Vermont, like remediation is a big key. Can we process things down so they can meet those numbers? Yes, right, Tom? I mean, that's a possibility. But the problem that we see, and referring back to Adam's issue in Mass, was, you know, he tested hot from his plant. He wasn't able to process it or put it into remediation to try to bring that level down. They burnt it. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, so when it comes down to it, Joe, I mean, it could obviously have the THC processed out in its entirety. I mean, that's why broad spectrum items exist. That's why isolates exist. It all comes down to state and federal governments just playing a power trip and trying to maintain some sort of control over the situation. So they're like, oh, well, if we allow them to go 0.03 or 0.0001 over. Well, what happens, next year? Oh, we allow them to go 0.005 over. And the next year, oh, well, it's okay. They can be 0.5%. Oh, and next year, it's okay. They can be 1%. So I think the biggest thing is that not only the federal government, but states, especially like Massachusetts, that are really highly regulated, look at it as, if for lack of a better term, fear tactics. They're looking at it as, oh, we don't want to see, this blow up into something more than what it is right now. We want to keep this as small as we possibly can. We don't want to see a bunch more people jumping in on this and thinking, oh, I can grow hemp because now I can grow it at 1.5% THC or something. And oh, well, I have the ability to extract that. And then I also have the THC too. So even though some states say, okay, well, yeah, you can remove the THC, but then prove that it's been destroyed. How are you going to be able to prove that it's all been destroyed as well? So there's a huge gray area as far as regulation is concerned. And I think the federal government, as well as many states, are looking at it as doing whatever they can to maintain control in the situation.
Well, shouldn't we look at the overall picture here? Like, obviously, we know that we can remediate and process out certain levels of THC. Shouldn't a state be, like you said, you can't break the rule, because once you start breaking the rule, everybody's going to want the rule broken, right? Even if you do it for one person, you got to do it for the next, and it just gets out of control. I understand that, but can't we, as a state-by-state basis, say, between 0.3 and 1, there's a remediation value to it. You're allowed to go process it in an oil or into something else, right? And then retest, and then just be required to retest or test, like Tim said. Why are we not testing our final retail products, right? Like,
exactly.
Most FDA testing is final retail product. It's not what the ingredient that's in it or what you mix in it, because as we all know, there's fire extinguisher stuff in sodas. There's all these weird chemicals and all these different things that if you were to test it by itself, probably not healthy to consume, but we put in our products, right? And it gets passed.
I can almost guarantee you that at least half of the CBD products that are on the market right now that have supplemental or nutritional information listed are fudged information. They literally took a bottle of MCT oil and went, okay, I put CBD into MCT. I'm just going to write down whatever it said on the supplemental bottle for MCT and call it good. But that's not acceptable, because there's fats in the CBD, depending on what types of oils you're using and stuff. There's other sorts of calories and everything else that are going into it too. Without having it properly tested, you're just providing snake oil.
Right. Well, that's a problem with where we stand legally, right? Because without our federal legalization, there is no regulation, right? So, like, literally, legitimately,
I'm more interested in regulation and final testing on products that hit the shelf than I am products that leave the field. I'm nowhere near as interested in the product that leaves the field as I am the product that hits the shelf, because that product that leaves the field could go through so many good processes and so many horrible processes over the next several months before it actually makes it to the shelf.
Right. And like Tim said, we see all over the country right now where there's testing labs being shut down for making false testing results, right? They're fudging testing results. I mean, it is easy to fudge a result, isn't it, Tom? Between moisture, like Tim said, where you take the bud off the plant.
Absolutely. So changing the moisture levels, including a considerable amount of fan leaf and or stem in the sample, can do that. I know of a lot of labs that are notorious for using the whole branch to take the actual sample. So it has the stalk in it, it has plenty of fan leaf, but then when they take the actual photo of the sample to provide it back to the company to go along with the sample, it's a photo of a trimmed hemp bud. So at that point, you're providing two different products. That trimmed hemp bud is nowhere near 0.3% THC. It's guaranteed to be over if that lab result is coming back in is like 0.25 and it has some fan leaf and some stem in there, guaranteed to be over 0.3.
So there's ways to trick the system. I mean, some of the people understand this, some people don't. There's chaos, there's a lot of backdoor things. And again, it falls down to regulations, like you were saying. Until we get regulations, no matter what you read on the bottle, you don't know. You know what I mean? You said they could put literally anything they want on any bottle, on anywhere, and sell it, right? And right now, unfortunately, we have a legal market for sales, but we don't have any regulations, right? You could be making stuff in my bedroom and be selling it.
And I see that as a huge issue, because you look at it from one aspect. If you put something on your bottle that says cures cancer, for instance, the FDA is coming down on you hard. You're going to get shut down fast. But you can provide a product on the market that has, you know, completely inaccurate supplemental information, and your stuff just floats off the shelves every single day.
Sherry.
What if there could be a green nurse approved program? Mark, unmute. Okay, think about it, right? So the American Dental Association, they have the ADA stamp on the toothpaste. What if there could be a green nurse approved stamp where you have expert cannabis nurses that are formulating, people in the doctors, scientists, chemists, pharmacists, to evaluate products, looking at specific standards. Mark, right, Mark?
You know it. Absolutely.
That's what we're going to come up with. We are coming up with green nurse
been working it.
because patients are coming to us all the time. When they come to us, what do they want? This is what they want. They want to tell us, they want us to tell them what to buy, what to take, and how to take it. So seriously, and so our job is to educate them on multiple levels, not just on what to take, but to educate them to help them to make the decision. And they're often looking to us to make the recommendations as to what product lines to choose. And there's so many out there that we feel as nurses, we have a moral, ethical obligation to investigate everything that's out there and to vet it. It's as simple as that.
There's some great programs out there that are trying to do that now. You know, they're trying to create some sort of certification program. Like you said, the ADA, right? The American Dental Association, they have their names on all their approved stuff, but not on anything that's not approved. I'm sure you can find stuff that's not ADA certified on our shelves somewhere, right? I mean, unfortunately, there's a cost to all this, right? There's an expense. There is a lot of lack for better words, experimentalization, right? Because again, like Tom said, and you were all talking about, there's how many thousands of CBD products in the market right now, right? There are guys with awesome ethics that are creating amazing products, and there are people that are cutting corners as hard as they can, and we saw that with our vape card issue, right? Look what happened there, and it came out to a mass effective of everybody in America. You know what I mean? When we draw back and we find out what's going on, we realize that this isn't healthy, right? And then again, here's where we talk about patients again, taking these devs, you know what I mean, these carts, these products, right? And like you said, they come back to you and it doesn't work. The Amazon thing blows my mind because there's been numerous testing of their top 10 sales of CBD products that don't have any CBD in them. It's like literally
well, just think about it. If a company had to go through, having cannabis nurses and to evaluate their product, because nurses are the most trusted profession for over 17 years in a row, right? Nurses aren't going to recommend junk. And wouldn't it make sense that they would want to have their product vetted by nurses?
Yes.
Right? Because here it is, makes sense. The nurses the nurses are doing the education. They're recommending products, educating on the various product lines. They're also going to be the customer service. So if a nurse is working with a patient and helping them to choose different products, she's actually representing that product line. She's not going to represent a product line that's garbage. And they're going to want to represent a product line that has standards to it. And so that's why it's important for, to have these approvals.
You're still going to see the same people with those ethics that are going to use you, and the people that don't have the ethics obviously are not. Unfortunately, we have a huge industry in this country that the demand is still way bigger than the supply, right? I mean, everybody's constantly grabbing whatever they can, and when they run out of the thing they like, what's the next thing they buy? Whatever is in front of them, right? Which again, that's our education system, that's our availability. Those are our dispensary workers, and those are our smoke shop workers that have to have an understanding, right? And then again, like you said, testing products. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a store of such that have products that we know are hot dog water, that we know that I wouldn't buy on the streets for half the price, right? And they're like, how did it even get into the back door of this place, right? Because again, the dispensaries aren't tested, they're relying on the product. The other thing that gets me really crazy, and this is something that Thomas is going to love to hear about, and I'm sure you guys will as well, is the use of organic, right? Technically there's no organic certifications going. I mean, some states have tried to do their own personal certifications. Vermont, there's been personal certifications, but as a chef in the chef industry, I know organic can be used very widely. It's a very loose term word, right? What about
more
organic?
widely than you know, Joe. There's beer trucks driving around now that say USDA certified organic on the back. Well, I'll tell you what, if my hemp can't be USDA certified organic, then neither can a fucking Michelob. Excuse my language.
Right? But I mean, these are the steps that we need to take as an industry, right? To help. I mean, even if the government isn't behind us, right? Like as responsible companies within this industry, we need to be looking for those accreditations, right? These guys.
Well, that's what it is too. It's holding. If you say you're making medicine, if you say you care about patients, then you know what? Show it, prove it. We want to hold companies accountable. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. We're here truly to protect patients.
Yes, for sure. And now this gets me back to some news to get back to Tim on. In the news, this goes with you guys. I want to hear everybody's response to this. Is Utah, right? I don't know if you guys have saw this. Utah is considered allowing any doctor to recommend cannabis. Is this something that is good or bad? I mean, I know it sounds good, but I mean, is this something we want without the regulation or the education?
Well, here's the thing. I'm in my own opinion, a doctor's not going to recommend it unless they understand it.
Right.
That's number one.
I'm with Sherry on that one. When I spoke to my doctor about it, when I spoke to my initial primary care doctor, and she said, well, I don't know too much about it, but I understand where you'd like to go with this, and I understand your concerns. So let me introduce you to another primary care doctor who could assist you with that. So I think in that respect, if the doctors know what they're doing and they actually understand it, then there's no issues. I think that there's actually going to be a lot more issues with dispensaries providing products that the customer isn't necessarily the best product for the customer, more than I am the doctor having an issue. I've been into dispensaries before where the pharmacist has straight up told me that I didn't need any CBD in my medication because I was a daily user. And because I was a daily user, the CBD was only there to help stop the paranoia from the THC. And I looked at him, I said, I can't even purchase from you at this point. I have to leave here and go to another dispensary. I said, I own Vermont Grow Coaching. I'm in here with my hat on. I'm using you for medical reasons, but you're wrong. Have a good day. And, there's just so much misinformation out there. But I think on the level of doctors over, say, a pharmacist quote unquote pharmacist in a dispensary, the doctor has more knowledge. The doctor has more riding on in the event that they screw up or in the event that they give a wrong recommendation, malpractice suits, things of that nature. The guy at the dispensary isn't anywhere near as concerned about that as the doctor is. So I can't imagine the doctor's going to be recommending anything that he wouldn't be 100% certain, or at least fairly certain that you'd be okay using.
Right. I mean, the dispensary guys are salesmen in a way, right? Like they're going to find the best product that they have on their shelf, right? They're not going to be like, oh, we don't have that for you today. You're going to go somewhere else, right? They're going to try to sell you what they got. I've seen this many times at events where, people, concerned older people that are learning about the industry come in and say, hey, my son says I need a sativa. And the guy looks at him and goes, oh, well, this is what we got. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's like, oh man, that's not a sativa. That's, that's this and that's that. Like, so there's a lot of misinformation, so much misinformation. I think it's just because everybody tried to jump on board. Like we said, a lot of people are coming from a black market to a retail market or a legal market, and the transition's a little awkward, right? But now we have people stepping in like the green nurses, people all over the country, nurses everywhere. The American Cannabis Nurse Association, which we'll give a big plug to here, who's doing amazing things across the country, which we definitely need. We have them here in Vermont, which big shout out to Jesselyn Dolan. You guys have had a huge last couple of weeks there as well, and especially for you, Mark, right?
Yeah, big time.
Congratulations to
President-elect
Mark.
ACNA. I'm psyched.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. Really, really ready to get busy.
I mean,
Get busy with all the women.
Oh. It's funny. I became a yoga instructor years ago. Now I'm in the cannabis space with the nurses. I don't know. I'm always drawn to women-led organizations. I just love them.
Let me jump in on the Utah question, because I want to put a little from a different, just a little bit of a different perspective. One of the reasons what Utah is trying to do is allow any doctor to prescribe it, because one of the tactics that has been used, especially early on in medical programs for states where ballot initiatives passed them, is states required doctors to take a ridiculous certification course from people who didn't know what they were doing, but it was often expensive. It was often time consuming. There was one a year. They made it very difficult for doctors to jump through all the hoops that were necessary for the state to certify them to authorize marijuana. Now, cannabis is not dangerous. I'm sorry, it's not dangerous. It is not dangerous. It is not dangerous. It's not dangerous. You know, and most prescription medicines are a lot more dangerous. Now, anything in excess, yes, if somebody is just waking up in the morning and smoking pot all day, that's not going to be good for them. Well, that's not going to hurt them. But they may not get out of bed, and they may have no motivation, and there may be other issues that are exacerbated. You know, these things why, you know, medical patients should be seeing a doctor. But to say that you need to jump through all of these hoops and take these certification classes from people who don't know what they're teaching you, they don't know anything either, because none of us really understand the science yet. We are just beginning to grasp it. We are beginning to understand these things. But they also would publicly publish the names of the doctors and make that public information. And the reason they did that was so the patients could find it. No, it was all about stigma. It was all about making those doctors look bad in the eyes of their colleagues. So New Jersey in particular, at the very beginning of their medical program, we saw this happen a lot. Florida as well. Both of them were eventually changed, and things were changed because, you know, these were ballot initiatives and these were seriously hurting the availability of doctors. But they were, you know, it was like the Scarlet Letter. Like, you didn't want to be in that marijuana book for a doctor, you know, that was career suicide at that point in time. So what this Utah thing is based off of is an unacceptable situation that was limiting cannabis early on, trying to say that, okay, now instead of having to take these classes and register and put your name in this book and pay a bunch of money, anybody can recommend it, which I love that. Just like Oklahoma with their no qualifying conditions. Any doctor can prescribe for any reason they see fit. Because qualifying conditions is another reason, is another way in which they limit access to this medicine from those who need it. So I just, you know, we all got ideas and stuff, you know, and sorry about before too. The indica sativa thing just drives me bonkers. I can't take it anymore. Like, there's no indica sativa anymore. It's not true. It's not like in a couch. And I know it's cannabinoid profile. It's terpene profile. It is individual profiles of how the cannabinoids and the terpenes interact with each other to have an effect on you. It's not, everything is a crossbreed these days. You know, so I hear that. It's just gonna that's just my little rant. Thank you. I love you all. I'm over now.
Well, the last thing I want to bring up before we get to Thomas here, and this is something that touches us all because, you know, you guys are Mass-based as well. The former city official pleads guilty to bribery, extortion, and cannabis licensing probe. We saw this a few years ago, right before re-election. They ended up getting re-elected, Mr. Correa. Now he's pleaded guilty. Is this something we're going to see going through these states with, you know, just bribery, extortion? Because I mean, this was a big deal back, you know, in Mass. Like, you know, they're really handpicking their applicants, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he was 27, I think, at the time. He was the youngest mayor, Fall Rivers or Mill Rivers, something like that. Yeah, the youngest mayor ever. You know, I mean, there is something to be said for age. There is something to be said for having a little bit of wisdom and maybe a decade or two before you're in a position where people could be handing you $50,000 in a paper bag in the back of a Cadillac. You know, and that's poor decision making. But are those temptations going to be there in this industry? Of course. We've got an industry that we're transitioning right now. We're in a period where you have unregulated players. We're very used to $50,000 in a paper bag and the crossover into the legitimate business world. I'm not going to name any names for sure, but I will tell you, we've had more than one prospective client come into our office like, I've got $150,000 in 20s in a shoebox, and can I start a business? I haven't filed taxes in 5 years. What do I do? You know, so, you know, we are at a point where that is going to happen. You know, it's just inevitable, but it won't happen. You know, again, you know, I urge people to look at prohibition and look at the transition when alcohol was illegal and became legal. And, you know, it just overnight, everything wasn't perfect. There was still a lot of the old kind of guard. There's still, you know, clinging on to that. But that's part of the transition. That's part of the shift. So I think, well, yeah, that's not going to be the last time we hear of something like that. I think that as states come legal, as we see more and more, those states are going to use that as an example. Okay, maybe we should structure our regulatory system a little better so the temptation's not quite there that much. Community host agreements in Massachusetts were a great example of a very good idea, theoretically, going incredibly bad. You know, you basically legalized extortion. You know, where towns could just extort as much and anything they wanted in order to get one of those local level. A good idea in theory, not so bad, you know, not so good in practice. And I think every time you see a state legalize, as we grow, as the industry grows, as the industry matures, you're going to see less and less of that till we get to the point where, again, we're accepted like any other industry. You know, I don't think it's that far off. Things happen quick. You know, 5 years in cannabis is 50 years to everything else. So, you know, hopefully in another 5 or 6 years here, we're going to see a normalization level where this is not, you know, this doesn't happen or happens very rarely.
Right. Oh, hopefully not. Right. I guess one other thing I just want to bring to the plate here before we go. Sorry, I just see this and it's kind of bugging me. I'm trying to read the article as we're talking. But basically, Dutchess County, Oregon is suing the state for access to cannabis taxes. There's a couple opt-in, opt-outs. There's people paying taxes. They're not getting their revenue. Is this something, again, that we're going to see a lot more permanent with, like all these opt-in, opt-outs, different county provisions?
Local versus state taxation, that's not unique to cannabis. That's an ongoing battle. That's going to happen all the time. Federal, state, local. Everybody thinks that, you know, nobody has enough. Everybody has too much. You don't need it. We need it here, you know, and, you know, that's not new to cannabis. It's going to continue beyond cannabis. I think this is one of the reasons it's very important to put in a very solid, you know, tax scheme, but it's impossible to do because it's such a new industry. We don't have history. You can't look back and say, okay, traditionally cannabis has generated this much of revenue in a state with this population. You don't have the metrics that they typically use to be able to make these. So they're wild guesses. They end up being, well, it could be on the low end, you know, 2 million, it might be 8 million, it could be 42 million, I don't know. You know, so allocating taxes when you don't understand what the base is going to be, you know, oftentimes the state will make very conservative judgments. And then that, you know, of course, municipalities are like, no, we need more. Now you've got, you know, the municipalities that are hosting cannabis businesses saying, well, we need the money because, you know, there's going to be, you know, 8-year-olds running on joints and there's going to be, oh my God, the sky's going to fall. We're going to need 85 more cops just to watch this thing. And there'll be junkies all over, you know, and then the neighboring communities that don't have cannabis business are saying, well, their junkies are going to come over here. So we need more cops now too. So all these towns, and this happened in Massachusetts, have this kind of fear that's honestly been drummed into them often by state leagues of towns and cities, these generally associations that hold the insurance for towns and municipalities. And as a national organization, these entities hate cannabis. They're just scared of it. They don't want it. They're afraid, you know, things are going to go crazy. The municipality is going to make all these claims on their insurance policies. So that's, you know, for example, Vermont, why we have the default for retail being opt out, and towns have to affirmatively opt in. That is such an enormous pain in the ass. And that's exactly what they lobbied for. They lobbied hard for it. We didn't want any opt-in, opt-out provision. We were willing to compromise and say, all right, we'll do an opt-in, opt-out, the default being they opt in. And if the town does not want cannabis retail, then there needs to be an affirmative vote to opt out. You know, now everyone's opted out and you have to affirmatively opt in, which just makes things very difficult.
Wasn't that part of the chip for these communities to get involved in this business? I mean, they're supposed to get their projected tax revenue back. I mean, a lot of it is how they,
nobody knows. Nobody knows how much money it's going to generate. So nobody can say for sure what these towns are going to get. And for Vermont, the town needs to have already passed a local option tax in order to collect cannabis revenue. Otherwise, it all does go to the state. So there's only, you know, maybe I forget how many, 30 or 40 Vermont towns that have passed local option taxes. If they don't have a local option tax, they can't tax cannabis, and at least not yet. We think probably by next year, they're going to make a special classification like they do for alcohol, where they can pass a specific cannabis excise tax for 1%, which is fine. Great, wonderful. But a lot of towns don't want to pass the 1% option tax because then it would apply to everything. They can't right now specifically target it just for cannabis. If you pass the 1% option tax, it's going to apply to all sales 1%. And you know how people in Vermont feel about anything that, you know, TAX.
Yeah, right.
You know, even a penny on a dollar is, you know, just it doesn't fly. So that has created some, you know, when we get a lot of the towns saying, well, what's in it for us? If we don't have a local option tax, what's in it for us?
Well, that's my point.
Traffic. You're going to generate tourism. You're going to generate jobs. You're going to generate interest, buzz. People are going to be talking about it. All these tourists are going to be coming through because they want to, check out the different dispensaries. Get creative. Let zone it so there's a opportunity to have a cultivation facility, an extraction facility, and a retail shop, and have them do tours. Come up with creative ways in which to generate buzz, generate tourism dollars into your town because of this industry. It's not simply the tax revenue. That it's like talking to a wall sometimes. I've had this conversation with quite a few town managers, and some are open to it, and some will just sit there and they don't believe it. They don't listen. They have been indoctrinated with so much propaganda and so much fear about cannabis. And there are still, and unfortunately, a lot of them are in position of power. A lot of them are on select boards. A lot of them are retired, have nothing better to do, and will sit there and tell you with a straight face that marijuana is as dangerous as heroin.
Right. And sadly, we have years of legalization in various states, right? We've had years of medical in various states. And like you said, you say it every week, the sky hasn't fallen yet, right, Tim? So it's like,
I'm still waiting for it. I check up in Canada, man, by now that whole country should be nothing but flames and chaos. They've been legal for 2 years in the whole country. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Or at least they're out of Tim Horton donuts.
Yeah, right. That's gonna be chaos.
Well, the best part about this is we legitimately see, and then with Sherry and Mark here, we legitimately see alcohol consumption going down. We see opioid use going down, right? We're seeing even with suicides, right? Going down a little bit, right? A lot of these things tie into each other. And we talk about the alcohol thing a lot because it's the legal, whatever you want to call it, right? And we talk about people who grow up in an alcohol abused home versus a cannabis abused home. It's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
We talk about the
big difference.
The potential death. I mean, we joked around about it last week. I even made a meme and posted it about the deaths from vending machines. There's been 37 deaths from vending machines falling over on people, killing them. How the fuck does that happen? But we have no deaths from cannabis, right? We're not locking up vending machines. We're not nailing them to the ground. We're not keeping a pole.
Water. That was my example. Water. People can drink themselves water, too much water, and die.
Water intoxication, very true.
Exactly. I mean, spiders, all these craziest things, and we talk about cannabis, and it's just it blows my mind that even if you want to experiment in it, it's not going to kill you. If you want to experiment heroin and an opioid or cocaine, there's a good chance that you could die. You know what I mean? And we see it all over this country. Opioids, I believe, is our #1 killer in this country still, is it not? So I mean,
Corona is right now.
Yeah.
Corona is the #1 killer, but I think.
And now we have vaccines out, so we'll see how that goes. That's a whole other conversation I don't even want to think about yet, because I just fear that in 5 years we're going to be seeing the lawsuits coming out on TV. If you took this vaccine, if you did this, did that, you know what I mean? It just blows my mind. Like we said last week, we have how many years of testing for AIDS? We have how many years of testing for cancer? We have how many years of testing for all these things that we just can't find a solution for, but we can find a solution for a vaccine within months. You know what I mean? It's just a little scary for me personally. But there's huge reports out there about how Corona and cannabis can be effective together, right? We've talked about that. You guys have brought that up. There's one thing I did want to have you guys talk about. I know Sherry got prepared for this, was diabetes. We had this question last week. But before we get to that, I want to break away one more time. Then we're going to talk to Thomas about his segment really quick, and we're going to come back, talk about diabetes, and wrap up the show. Because that is another huge thing for me. That was, we brought that question up last week. A bunch of people chimed in. There really isn't much out there, right?
Well, there isn't a ton of research, and a lot of the research has conflicting information. However, with that being said, there is a lot of anecdotal evidence, and and I'm going to break down too a little bit diabetes, because there's two kinds of diabetes. One is functional, and one is structural. So I'll let you go to your segment, because diabetes is a cool little topic. And if I get started now, I'm gonna be off on a tangent.
Yes, no, and I agree. I believe there's a bunch of people with gout that it's misdiagnosed, because I've seen some friends of mine have gone through gout. My father went through years of that pain, went to a different doctor, and the guy's like, "You have diabetes, bro," and he's fine now. You know what I mean? He's taking care of it, and it's just, again, it's when we talk about the medical field. Uh, Different opinions is always great. A second opinion is not a bad thing to have, because, again, you said it last week, when a doctor comes in the room, they look at a list of things that you checked off, and they come up with an automatic assumption, right, before they even talk to you about what you're doing, your health, your needs, your mental state, things that you're consuming on an everyday basis, which is stuff that we need to talk about: food, drugs, sodas, all these things,
All of it.
processed food, right? So we'll come back, we'll talk about diabetes, because that's a huge thing, and we're going into the holiday season. Guess what everybody's going to be eating in the next couple of weeks?
Sugar.
Edibles, candy, sugar, right? So we're going to talk about diabetes. But now Thomas, I'm sure, has a lot to say about edibles and consumptions and health. Has a great.
Well, I got plenty to say about diabetes too. I mean, my mom lost all of her toes due to gangrene, and I've been her caregiver for the past 11 years now. So, but we'll go on to the segment. This week's segment is actually back on to the growing aspect. We're done with edibles for a while. For me, the holiday season is Thanksgiving. That's the food time. Christmas for me is more like, I just want to stay as warm as possible and not go outside. I don't really care about food at that point. It's more just like staying warm. So we are actually going to be discussing how to be lazy this winter, how to cure your buds automatically without having to burp your jars on a daily basis. So this is just a quick and simple way to make an automatic burping system with a simple vacuum pump. And I've done this with up to 10 quart mason jars at a time. So that's roughly 10 to 20 ounces, depending on the density of your bud. So without further ado, give it a go.
Here you go. Thomas Marcom, Vermont Grow Coaching, with his Grower's Guide.
Awesome.
Hey guys, Tom with Vermont Grow Coaching, and welcome to Grower's Guide, your weekly beginner-friendly cannabis tips and tricks. This week on Grower's Guide, we're going to be helping out all the folks with arthritis out there. Not just the folks with arthritis, but also all you guys that grew pounds and pounds and pounds off your 2 flowering plants this year and have so many jars that it's just a pain in the butt to have to open them all. Or maybe you're going away for a few days. Now, don't get me started on COVID. Stay home, stay home, stay home. But in any case, so if you guys are interested in an automated way to cure your cannabis, this is the segment for you. Let's check it out. For this project, you're going to need a quart-sized mason jar, 1/4-inch tubing, 1/4-inch grommets, a fuel filter, and a small vacuum pump. All right, guys, so this is really easy. And when I say really easy, I mean, even I can do this, okay? So you know it's easy. All right, so you need a fuel filter, all right? Don't grab the one off your push mower. You want a new one, not a used one. Don't make me explain that one to you. Go out to your big box store, go out to your hardware store, pick up one of these fuel filters, $5, $10 max. Then you need a 1/4-inch tubing that's gonna be fed into a grommet. That tubing is gonna go all the way to the bottom of your jar. That way, when the fresh air is sucked through, it's going to provide fresh air to all of your buds as the air is exchanged on its way out. At the top of the jar, you've got another tubing through another grommet, but that tubing only goes in about 1 inch or so. From there, that tubing is going to be fed to your vacuum pump. Your vacuum pump will be attached to a timer, and you set up your timer for about 1 minute to be run every 12 hours, give or take. As long as you are set up in the proper temperature and humidity level, you should be all set to go to have a nice automated curing system. If you want to add on extra jars, that's super simple. Instead of feeding in the second line to your vacuum pump, feed it to the bottom of your second jar, and then another line to your pump, so on and so forth. I've been able to get the system to work with up to 10 jars without a problem. This pump you see in the back here, really simple, 1.5 CFM pump. It's not very powerful at all, but it does the trick. You definitely want to make sure that you have that fuel filter, because otherwise you could be pulling in a whole bunch of bad contaminants into your jar. Make sure that when you're doing this process, you keep it in a nice, clean environment and check on it daily to make sure that nothing goes wrong. All right, so I know you guys don't want to leave without seeing me give it a go. So I'm not going to hook it up to a timer for you, but we are going to flip it on and let you see it happen. All right, so we've got the pump running, and you can see over here on the left-hand side, as I touch the bottom of the fuel filter, you get a little bit of a suction noise. That means the fresh air is being drawn through the bottom of the jar, being pulled up through the top and exhausted. It is making the room a little bit on the stinky side right now, so make sure you're not doing this in grandma's bedroom, okay? All right, so like I said, super easy. That's it. There is absolutely nothing to it. If you have any questions or concerns regarding today's segment, or would like to set up a consultation appointment, please reach out to us at VermontGrowCoach.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or contact us directly at 802-342-5381. See you next time. It's blooper time. All right, I say let's run it. Hey, Tom, what's all the hubbub, bub? What's this thing?
Oh man, another great, funny, awesome segment. I watched that earlier, dude. I was laughing, I was rolling, I was trying to be on a phone call. It just didn't work.
Well, you know, I every week I try to make it a little bit more animated, a little bit more creative, because if you go back and you look at my first videos, I'm standing here like this and I'm slurring my words and I'm missing up and the videos just look like crap. But now between the intro, the outro, and finally getting into my groove, I think they're coming along nicely.
Well, I think I mean, we've all talked about stories here. We've had you on the show as a guest before, Tom, but like people don't realize, again, you have struggles with this, right? That you utilize cannabis for. Let's talk about that really quick.
Absolutely. I actually I have Asperger's. In the U.S., it's now just known as high functioning autism. Asperger's was removed from diagnosis quite a while ago, but it's still known in several other areas of the world. So it pretty much means that I struggle for the most part with a considerable amount of overstimulation. So when I go to the grocery store, I wear headphones because I can't tune out all the noises around me. The other carts moving, other people having a conversation, they all just try to come at me at once and I can't get rid of them. If I go to a family gathering and I'm having a conversation with one person and there's another conversation going on to the left and another to the right, my brain is absorbing all the conversations and I actually can't even interpret what I'm hearing, to the point of where I get overwhelmed, agitated, and aggravated and end up having to leave. It's a normal occurrence for my wife and I to arrive at a social gathering in separate vehicles and at separate times. She'll arrive early because she loves the social gatherings and actually likes to spend time there. I arrive late because I know that if I'm in the situation for too long, I can't control myself anymore and I become overstimulated and overwhelmed and I need out. So I'll actually arrive late, and because I brought my own car, in the event that I do feel that I get into those situations, I can also leave early or go and pop out to the car and take some of my cannabis, some medicine real quick, calm myself down before going back in. Lost me there for a minute. So with that said, I also use it for arthritis pain, but the main reason I use my cannabis is definitely for the Asperger's symptoms. It helps slow my brain down a little bit. It helps me control some of those actions a little bit more, and some of those impulses that I otherwise would be feeling. And it definitely helps me feel more compassion as well. I feel that I wouldn't say that I'm not a sensitive person. It's not that I don't have feelings. It's not that I don't care about people. It's that I find it hard to put myself into your shoes on a regular basis. If you come to me with a problem, it's hard for me to have the empathy for that problem. My kids are an exception. For some reason, for them, I can have empathy no matter what. But when it comes to a friend or another family member coming to me with something like that, having cannabis in my system actually allows me to think about that situation and understand it and develop empathy for that person, even if I otherwise wouldn't have felt it without it.
Now, you, as far as consumption goes, this is something I want to bring up and make aware of too, because we have the green nurses with us. And on your video, it says, you're the first cryogenically cured cannabis in Vermont, right? And now, I was talking to Sherry about this the other day about cryo-cured cannabis and the benefits to that, right? And the separation from, again, medical and recreational. Like typically, people are going for cannabis want that kick in the brain. They want the high THC, but that's not always what we're looking for, right? Now, with the cryo-cured cannabis, the cryogenically cured product, right? It really locks in all the cannabinoids, right? Can you explain to us just that process again?
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, when you chop down a plant, it starts degrading almost immediately. So over the course of the next several hours, it's going to lose a considerable amount of its terpenes. And then over the course of the next week to a couple of weeks, as it dries and cures, it's also going to lose some of its cannabinoids. And some of the cannabinoids are going to convert into other cannabinoids, such as CBN. CBN known to help people sleep and to help with relaxation. With that said, cryo-cured bud, even when you use something traditional as an indica strain, cryo-cured bud doesn't necessarily give you the same couch lock effect as you otherwise would from a traditional indica strain because of the lack of the CBN, the lack of the conversion during the drying and curing process. So with that said, the high is definitely more clear-headed, and a lot of the THCA, even when smoked, doesn't necessarily convert to THC as easily, I'd say. I need to do a little bit more research on that end, but I can definitely say that given a cryo-cured version of a bud versus a traditional version of a bud, you're going to feel less of that THC head high. You're going to feel less of that couch lock, but you're also going to feel more of an entourage effect, more of a medicinal effect, and definitely a higher terpene profile. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When I go into a dispensary, I don't look at a jar and say, oh, I want that one because it's 30% THC. I say, let me have all 6 of those jars and smell them because I want to know what my body wants today.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're discussing that earlier. It's whatever tickles your nose. When people ask me what my favorite is, I'm always like you said, Tom, here, smell them. See what's your favorite, right? It's that tickle the nose. It's what you amp up, right? But the cryogenically cured cannabis is something that's new to our industry. We talk about fresh pressed dabs and like trying to keep all the cannabinoids in all of our medicine for patients, and this is a great way of doing it. This is why I like to push it. We promote it. We talk about it a lot. If you can try it, like Thomas says, it's not a THC happy product. No, it's not even converted yet. It's still THCA, right? So until you apply heat to it, you're not going to be able to get that THC value from it, but you get all the cannabinoids, you get all these terpenes, all these things that Ethan Russo talks about. And if you guys don't know who Ethan Russo is, please do some research on the entourage effect, because a lot of what we talk about every day in the show will probably make a lot more sense to you because you hear it and it literally is what it sounds like, right? It's the entourage effect. It's what happens when all these cannabinoids hit your body and how your body responds to that, right? Not just THC, not just these focused point products, right? Like we said, for many years we were trying to get the highest THC, and to me, maybe Thomas will agree or not agree, but I think in the last few years we've seen a turn away from that, right? Because now we're looking for the medical properties. Everybody's into terps. Everybody wants these dabs with they open the jar and the terps blow their minds. You know what I mean? The smells, the flavors, like what you can get with properly crafted cannabis, right? Not this what we used to call Mexican brown bud. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we're after what we can get now, right? And
That's
so
the
for
part that's
patients,
so interesting too, is that we're evolving in such a way that we can craft our experience. We can actually say, this is the experience I am looking to have, and we can choose our product to create that experience.
yes,
That's what's so brilliant about how this plant is evolving with us as humans and the
yes.
intelligence around it.
I was actually just talking to a friend about that the other day. He wanted to start doing a strain review, but a specific strain review directed at different types of consumption. So he wanted to take an individual strain and say, okay, this is how it acts when I take it in fecal form. This is how it affects me when I take it in edible form. This is how it affects me when I roll up a joint, etc. And just provide people a different outlook on how they can actually consume each strain, because it's not all about just rolling up a joint and smoking it, or hitting a dab rig, or taking an edible. There's so many different ways that you can medicate that are so beneficial for your body. I mean, even topically.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it a bunch of times there in the show. It's understanding what you're going to get from that specific thing you're consuming, right? Like I said, if you're smoking bud or dabs and you go to an edible, it's not the same experience, right? When you go and you try all these different things, like you said, it's a vastly different experience, even with the same strain, because you're orally, there's rectally ways you can take things, and those are going to get in your blood the best, right? And then there's you actually eat it and you have it go through your digestive system, which is not something I recommend for patients, again, because of digestive issues, right? And we're talking about like diabetes and edibles and things like that, which is everybody's favorite way to consume right now is probably an edible. It's easy, it's discreet, you can eat it. It doesn't get you too messed up, but you feel great for hours, right? So it's a lot of interesting things. Now the holidays are coming. We're running late on the show, so I apologize to everybody. I wanted to talk about diabetes today, but we're going to have to switch it to next week, which we just discussed. So we'll bring in a big segment next week on diabetes. We'll try to focus a little bit more on there with the Green Nurse segment, because I think it's an important discussion to have. I mean, diabetes, Lyme, right? These are all things that people aren't 100% sure of. And like you said, there's a lot of information that goes both ways. There really is no clear anything to consumption for these issues, right? And I've worked with people with Lyme's, and it's been amazing what I've seen. You know what I mean? Everything that has anything to do with cannabis that I've been a part of has been amazing to me, which is what blows my mind every day about this product, about this plant, about these products, about technology, about everything we're doing in this industry, right? We're saving lives, like legitimately saving lives. We talk about young kids and seizures, and just the amount of things that this plant can impact is. We're going to talk about diabetes. We have a great show next week with Chris and Andy Martin. They were arrested. They came out with a 90-minute documentary about their trials and tribulations of going through the system, growing up as providers, being healthcare providers, and then being able to bounce back from that and that whole experience. So they have a 90-minute documentary that once I get back allowed on Facebook, we'll start posting around. We'll have them on next week. And then for New Year's Eve, or basically, we're not on New Year's Eve, but we're pretty close. Our special is going to be with OG Eddie Lepp, which is going to be another huge, great story about a cannabis survivor who went to prison. And then next month, guys, I got a lot of great stuff coming to you. We have Mendo Dope coming on the show, which is going to be awesome. We have Beth Waterfall coming on the show, which will be great. And we got a bunch of things happening, guys. So you won't want to miss any of the shows. We'll be back hopefully on Facebook in a couple of days, and then we'll kick us off again. I know we've all had our little experiences in this last week. We'll see what happens at Facebook. As if you haven't watched the news, you can see they're under a lot of scrutiny right now from the government. And being told to break up and all these crazy things. So we'll see what happens with Facebook in the next near future. Now, guys, if you want to check out the Green Nurse, you guys tell everybody how they can find you, where they can catch your shows, and you're running a holiday special right now, so you might as well put that out there as well.
Oh,
yes.
Gary, he's talking to you.
He's talking to me. Okay, so holiday special for a first-time card holder. We've lowered our prices for medical card renewals and a first-time card holder by $25, and you'll get a free bottle of Nurse Mark CBD. So first-time medical card holders and medical card renewals, go to www.thegreennurse.com, and on checkout, you're going to use the code in the weeds 220. 2020, sorry. In the weeds 2020. I was going to say 420. In the weeds 2020, and you'll get $25 off. You'll get a consultation with either the nurse or the nurse practitioner, and we'll send you a free bottle of CBD. Happy holidays.
That's right. That's right. Now, Mark, where can people find you if they want to reach out and talk to you?
Man, you can get me on thegreennurse.com. I'm definitely there, and nursemark.co as well. Happy to talk anytime, reach out. And, you know, we're doing live shows, live streaming. We live stream every day with the AFA Daily Dose, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, YouTube and Facebook. Check us out. Ask us questions. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then we do Wednesday and Friday nights we have shows as well. So Wednesday night and Friday nights we also stream live and bring on different guests, and we share compelling stories of healing, talking to a lot of medical professionals who share their stories of why they're using cannabis and how they're incorporating it into their lives, and also bringing on clients and people that you would never ever think that would use cannabis, truly to decrease stigma and bring hope.
And so that being said, you guys have a show tonight.
Yes.
So go check it out, The Green Nurse. And that's awesome, guys. Thank you for everything you do. It's truly a pleasure to have nurses take the step. It's not an easy step. There's a lot of stigmas. You kind of put yourself at the end of a plank here, right? But without people like you, we can't solidify our industry, right? Like you said, it's the nurses that we trust. It's the health practitioners that we look for and look to, right? Like what kills me is everything, we always argue with everything that comes in front of us as people are. But when a doctor tells you something, you tend to never question it, right? So it's one of those trusts that you have. So if you have a doctor that isn't interested in talking about cannabis with you, or is interested, please send them our way. Send them to the Green Nurse. They can get certified. There's accreditations. There's different ways that we can get you into our industry, right, and helping patients.
And we will talk to your practitioner. We will talk to your doctor. We don't have a problem doing that at all, reaching out at all. We love to educate and empower.
That's what we have to do. And that's why we're here, right? Now, Thomas, again, thank you for another awesome segment. Where can people reach out to you, Tom?
Obviously, you guys can reach out to me at vermontgrowcoach.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or call or text 802-342-5381. I say text because there's a lot of people that are still pretty skittish about leaving voicemails, and they'll call and they'll hang up, and they'll call and they'll hang up. I'm with another client. I don't have anybody else answering the phone but myself. I don't trust anybody else to answer the phone but myself. I want to talk to everybody. So in that respect, for the most part, Facebook, Instagram, you can send me a personal message too. I'll do my best to answer it.
Right. And if you guys ever have any questions concerning medical, growing, law, legal aid, anything like that, feel free to reach out to In the Weeds. And Timothy Fair, Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Now, Tim, how can
Vermont Cannabis Solutions, about as easy as you get.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for another great show. It was really interesting to hear everybody's stories, because I mean, the one question I think we get asked the most is, how do we get into this industry on any level, whether it's a medical professional level, whether it's a growing level, whether it's a legal level, whether it's just the idiot savant that wears a normal hat. I don't know. The biggest thing is to go out and talk, shake hands. It's no different than any other industry. Don't be intimidated by it. It's going to be one of our biggest industries globally, I believe, once we get our handles on everything going on. And guys, keep up with the news. There's a lot of stuff going on. Check us out, In the Weeds. We are also everywhere as well. Instagram, Facebook, the Masters of Cannabis, WeedTube. If you guys haven't checked those out, check those out. We're venturing into other outlets as well because of the Facebook stuff going on. And guys, we'll see you next week with...
Super nice to meet you, Mark. Sherry, be in touch soon. Tom, Joe, see you guys next week. Have a good one.
See you guys.
See you next week.
And as you guys always know, you can find all the archives on In the Weeds YouTube.